It's showtime, folks.
It's also the FBI that never disclosed that Donald Trump and his campaign was under investigation during the campaign. There were all these disclosures, as Joe has rightly said, about the Clinton campaign.
You revealed information about Hillary Clinton. You concealed information about Donald Trump. That elected Donald Trump.
The Hillary Clinton email case was public, and the counterintelligence investigations trying to figure out whether a small group of people, not Donald Trump, we were not investigating Donald Trump.
Donald Trump and his campaign was under investigation.
Whether a small group of people, not Donald Trump, we were not investigating Donald Trump, whether this small group of Americans was coordinating anything with the Russians.
It's also the FBI that never disclosed that Donald Trump and his campaign was under investigation.
We had just started the investigation, didn't know whether we had anything, so it would have been brutally unfair to those people to talk about it.
There were all these disclosures, as Joe has rightly said, about the Clinton campaign, the fact that collusion between the Trump campaign and the Russians in their meddling was under investigation never was disclosed.
We had just started the investigation, didn't know whether we had anything, so it would have been brutally unfair to those people to talk about it, and it would have jeopardized the investigation.
Matt Taibbi, who is a lefty journalist, or at least has been a lefty journalist his whole life. He is one of the guys that Elon Musk has been leaking these Twitter files to.
People just lied. In this case, even when Twitter had more or less conclusive proof that there were no Russians involved in the release, the memo hashtag, even when they informed media and elected officials, even when they pleaded with members of the Senate not to go public because it would make them look, quote, foolish, they went ahead and did it anyway, despite being informed of the truth that, of course, Twitter knew internally because they were looking at the raw data. So this is, I think, a template of how these stories came to be. The politicians and the media just simply overrode what the facts were.
He had a long thread yesterday about Russiagate, and of course Russiagate, which ultimately led to Donald Trump being impeached and a whole bunch of other things. It basically sounds like the entire thing was a complete fabrication. So he had a crazy long thread. Twitter Files 14, The Russiagate Lies. The fake tale of Russian bots and the hashtag Release the Memo hashtag. At a crucial moment in a years-long furor, Democrats denounced a report about flaws in the Trump-Russia investigation, saying it was boosted by Russian bots and trolls.
According to Congressman Adam Schiff and Senator Dianne Feinstein, analysts say the Russians appear to be using online bots and trolls to promote the hashtag Release the Memo. It's been trending in recent days. You may have seen it trending on Twitter.
Yep.
Devin Nunes prepared that so far classified memo. It accuses some federal investigators of misconduct.
Yep.
Is this the same Russian bot farms that were working during the election that are now working to gin up support for this campaign?
It seems that way, at least from the several, think tanks that track these bots. It looks like Russian-backed bots, some linked to the government, some not entirely linked, but showing that they've had this motivation behind them, retweeting the hashtag Release the Memo.
And by the way, Russian bots are promoting this.
As was pointed out on Twitter.
It's new data showing that Russia-linked bots are hyping terms like Schumer's shutdown and pushing a Republican campaign criticizing the Russia probe, lending fake support to this effort called hashtag Release the Memo.
In the days leading up to the release of that controversial Nunes memo, there was a hashtag on Twitter called Release the Memo that became hugely popular on Twitter. It was used by conservatives and allies of the president who hoped the memo's release would undercut special counsel Robert Mueller's investigation.
You have the Democrats saying that this memo is just another way to discredit the FBI and their efforts in this investigation and in Mueller's investigation. But then you have several Republicans who really want this memo released, and those who have seen it say that what's in it is very damaging and that it shows under the Obama administration that the FBI had mishandled these surveillance requests.
And yet they won't show it to the FBI to allow the FBI to investigate itself, and is throwing the FBI under the bus without facts to show anyone, right?
Completely. I mean, I don't know exactly if it's throwing them under the bus, but that's what the FBI thinks.
Of course, we found out 2 years later through the Inspector General's report that virtually everything in the Nunes memo had been proved correct. So I think that's what they were doing. They were just trying to deflect from an uncomfortable truth by calling him a Russian proxy.
Well, top Democrats sounding the alarm and taking the fight to Facebook and Twitter. Dianne Feinstein writing to Mark Zuckerberg and the current Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey, saying this meddling is designed to, quote, undermine special counsel Mueller's investigation.
But a series of recent reports indicate that some of those Twitter accounts promoting Release the Memo were fake, and that some of them were linked to Russian interests.
When these conspiracy theories are spread for political reasons and solely political reasons to protect a president who is not worth your protection with your lies.
Wow, look at that. There is another Russian-funded operation supporting Donald Trump. I mean, almost all the fake news that ran was during the election was in favor of Donald Trump. Almost all the Russian propaganda during the election was in favor of Donald Trump. And now, look at this, the bots and the trolls are favoring Donald Trump again. Wild coincidence, I'm sure. What evidence? What evidence? It's right in front of you.
On a new study from the New York University Center for Social Media and Politics that extensively analyzed the impact of Russian Twitter bots on the 2016 election and found, surprise, that their impact was trivial to non-existent.
Release the Memo is another hashtag that the right wing was using based on some FBI memo, and they think that, oh, it's supporting Hillary Clinton and we have to release the memo and then arrest everybody involved.
One of the things that we see from this study, we find no evidence of a meaningful relationship between exposure to the Russian foreign influence campaign and changes in attitudes, polarization, or voting behavior.
There they are, helping Donald Trump destroy our FBI. What a wild coincidence again. And it gives you a sense of what their marching orders are. And the marching orders is support the right wing, support Donald Trump, because the Republicans have the Russians' best interests in mind.
We find that exposure to posts from Russian foreign influence accounts was concentrated among a small group of users, with only 1% of users accounting for 70% of all exposures. Exposure to Russian foreign influence tweets was overshadowed by the amount of exposure to traditional news media and U.S. political candidates, meaning the billions of dollars poured into our election overshadowed the handful of bots on social media from Russia.
Twitter officials were aghast, finding no evidence of Russian influence. We are feeding congressional trolls, not any significant activity connected to Russia. Twitter warned politicians and media that not only they lacked evidence, but had evidence the accounts weren't Russian and were roundly ignored.
Twitter is saying it is not in the business of policing political thought or messaging. While Twitter will not confirm Russian actors were using its platform to meddle in the 2016 U.S. election, the proof it happened is adding up.
Remember, there were two sets of fake stories that came out at the time. One was that the story was being amplified by Russian bots. And that story, by the way, was repeated by virtually every major news organization in America.
Twitter accounts created as part of the Russian propaganda campaign helped the Russians form an entire army of automated Twitter bots and trolls that overwhelmingly supported one U.S. candidate.
Most of the accounts are made to look like Trump supporters, but actually begin and end in Russia.
On January 23, 2018, Senator Dianne Feinstein and Congressman Adam Schiff published an open letter saying the hashtag gained the immediate attention and assistance of social media accounts linked to Russian influence operations. Connecticut Senator Richard Blumenthal followed suit, publishing a letter saying, "We find it reprehensible that Russian agents have so eagerly manipulated innocent Americans."
That there are these bots and laundering of
money and misinformation, but there's also the threat of covert hacks and international proxies that are masquerading as legitimate groups in this country. And the American people need to be aware of this classified, top secret information.
Really quick, since I know that you're keeping score, has any news organization that printed false allegations then apologized now in light of the truth coming out?
Not only have they not apologized, but not one of the news organizations that I reached out to for comment about this particular issue responded to me. Which suggests to me that they know exactly what happened. They know exactly how irresponsible they were. Again, this isn't a left or right issue. This is just simply a fact issue. They needed to be able to ask Twitter what was going on, and I don't think most of these news organizations did that, and now they're reluctant to admit it.
Yep.
Bots helped drive the conversation in the lead up to 2016, and now there are new, bigger questions on how much they may have influenced President Trump's election or Hillary Clinton's loss. In the new cyber war of bots against facts, the truth is at stake.
To try to warn Americans about Russia's continuing election interference and trying to outline some steps on how to stop that. Then just hours later at a rally in Pennsylvania, I was there, the president made no mention of that whatsoever except to call it a hoax. And then instead spent the majority of his time in that rally delivering a screed against the media, complaints against the press, using fake news as a term not to say this story is not true, but simply use it as a blanket term for coverage he didn't like, and in particular on Russia.
As a bipartisan report from this committee said, Russia used social media as part of, and I quote, a comprehensive and multifaceted campaign to sow discord, undermine democratic institutions, and interfere in U.S. elections and those of our allies. We were too slow to spot this and too slow to act. That is on us.
So talk to us about the main revelations from all of these Twitter files. There's been a lot. I want you to suppress it into what's most important for us.
I think the major revelation of the Twitter files so far is that we've discovered an elaborate bureaucracy of what you might call public-private censorship. Basically, companies like Twitter had a system by which they received tens of thousands of requests for action on various accounts, typically through the DHS and the FBI, but these requests were coming from basically every agency in the government. We've seen them from the HHS, from the Treasury, from the DOD, even from the CIA, and they will send basically long lists of accounts in Excel spreadsheet files and ask for action on those accounts, and in many cases, Twitter is complying.
Abuse, harassment, troll armies, propaganda through bots and human coordination, misinformation campaigns, and divisive filter bubbles. That's not a healthy public square. If we don't find scalable solutions to the problems we're now seeing, we lose our business and we continue to threaten the original privilege and liberty we were given to create Twitter in the first place.
I am your voice. Just stop with your conspiracy theories, because you are making America less safe.
Hope it's worth it to you.